Women Lead is brought to you in part by the Florida Lottery's Bright Future Scholarship.
Welcome to Women Lead, a production of the Women of Color Empowerment Institute. We are your hosts. I'm Michelle Austin-Pammy.
I'm Bernadette Norris-Weeks.
And I'm Kathy Eggleston.
Our show today is about difficult conversations, women uniting to build trust and beneficial alliances. Now, this is the second time that we've had a show on difficult conversations, and we're having this one because we think it's really important. The topics that we covered are just the topics that you really never hear women talk about on a daily basis. And when I say women, white women, black women, Hispanic women, we really don't have those collaborative conversations that I think move the needle forward. But we did that at our last Women of Color Empowerment Conference.
Well, we had an astonishing panel at that conference. Diversity of cultural backgrounds, of industries, just the right mix of folks, and a lot of insights.
All right, so at the end of the day, what we're talking about is the unique perspectives of people within a spectrum. We had gender issues, we had racial issues, and they were talked about in an open setting where it was a safe space.
It was.
People
really
said
was.
what they really thought, what they really believed. They talked about their privilege very comfortably, and I think we could learn a lot from that. So we are actually going to be sharing with you the actual footage from our conference where these folks were talking about these difficult conversations.
And the people were stellar. The panelists were stellar. We had folks like Dion Polite, who moderated this very special session. We had Penelope Blair. We had Carla Hernandez-Matt. We had Gannett Wright-Muir. We had Mona Pittinger. So it was quite a panel of really great leaders.
Well, it was a wonderful, frank conversation that I had not heard in that way anywhere else. I don't think our audience had heard at the conference anywhere else. And now you are going to hear from that excerpts from that conference. So stay tuned. Don't go away. We'll be right back with Difficult Conversations.
Your ticket from the Florida Lottery isn't just a ticket. It's your ticket. With over 1 billion winners and counting across the state, it's your ticket to fun and excitement. It's also your ticket to support local retailers right in your community. And with billions of dollars contributed to Florida students and schools, your ticket is their ticket to a brighter future. So no matter how you play, your ticket goes much further than you think.
At the Women of Color Empowerment Institute, our mission is to enhance and expand leadership by women of color. We do this in a variety of different ways, including but not limited to providing mentorship opportunities for young professionals where we assist in helping to create paths to leadership. We empower women to develop capacities for social change. We produce programs that promote heritage awareness, and we provide training opportunities for business and government. Our institute holds seminars focused on professional success techniques, and we host many other events such as our popular Advocates for Change and Leaders Connect. The Women of Color Empowerment Institute publishes a magazine called Women Lead. Our signature event is the Women of Color Empowerment Conference, a yearly conference where hundreds of leaders gather from all across the United States and beyond. To learn more about membership and how you can support our programs or be a sponsor of the Women Lead TV, visit us at nationalwomenofcolor.com. Again, that's nationalwomenofcolor.com.
The law office of Austin-Pammy Norris-Weeks Powell is a full-service law firm practicing in the area of governmental law, including the representation of municipalities, civil litigation, personal injury, real estate, and corporate transactional matters. With over 100 years of collective experience, our attorneys are admitted to practice before state courts, federal courts, and the United States Supreme Court. We are conveniently located in downtown Fort Lauderdale and can be reached at 954 768 9770. Or for more information about the law firm of Austin, Pammies, Norris, Weeks, Powell, visit our website at apnwlaw.com. That's apnwlaw.com.
So the first thing I want to do is we'll explore both personal experiences as well as professional experiences, and I want to go back, and Penelope, really stimulated something in me when you talked about being a part of a Black organization. Do you think, Penelope, and then the rest of you as well, if the tables were turned, that we could do that? Say a person of color, a Black, brown, Latina, could go into a white organization. I'm thinking specifically, what's a really prominent all-white organization?
The KKK?
They're a bunch. Okay, so we know they're a bunch. So let's start with that. Let's start with, and do you think, Penelope, and then we'll come around this way, do you think that we would have that say somebody like me, big, dark, bald-headed, gap-toothed, all of that. Could I go into a white organization and have one of my colleagues say to me, Dion, girl, sit down and be yourself. No need to be an imposter. No need to have my afternoon voice or my morning voice at this conversation. Be yourself. Do you think that's possible, or do you think that is something that is in progress? Because you're a trailblazer, right? You're in the room where it happens.
I'm going to say, I think people of color have always had to be the one to walk in that room. And you were not able to be authentic. You had to fit in. Otherwise, you wouldn't be allowed back in. And I am thankful because the conversations are now at a different level. It's similar to me having a trailblazer before me to give me a seat at the table. You have a seat at the table. Now it's moving it to, I'm at the table, now we should be the same. And to me, it's a process. We're never there. And to me, that's the exciting and frustrating part of life. So it kind of answers, but not really, because at the end of the day, I was able to participate, and I never thought of myself as a trailblazer, because someone else allowed me to. Bernard invited everybody to. The groups where I am the single white individual, or there's just a handful of us, I'm only there because someone of color invited me. Mm-hmm. So it goes both ways, mm-hmm. because there is this feeling of, I don't want to make somebody uncomfortable by bringing them to an environment where they might not feel as comfortable as I want them to. But it's the same thing with me. Do I really want to bring her there when we're all just being ourselves? And that's, the life of gatherings is so much fun. The engagement of individuals is a gift. And to me, it's accepting each person who they are, similar to LGBTQ community. It's like, do you have to mask who you are? Or are you allowed to be yourself wherever you go?
We'll ask that question as well, because I kind of have some, I bet you I know, but Carla, if you can follow what Penelope, what do you think?
Listen, you gave our sister a really hard question to come off with.
Listen, it's difficult conversation, so I figured I'd start with that.
So listen, we don't have a lot of white woke women, okay? We don't. The answer is no. I think that people do not invite women of color to the table and to organizations. I think that there are people like Penelope, and there are people in this world that do want to include us because they know our struggle, they know the fight, and they want to support us. But that's not the majority. It's not. And so I think that we, as a collective women of color, are inclusive because we've been there. So because we've been excluded, we allow people and we welcome them on, to come into our organizations, to have a seat at the table. But that has not been felt by every community. And so, look, 1963, Equal Pay Act, passed by Congress. 1963, 60 years ago. Do you all know how much women get paid right now compared to women? Compared to men? 84 cents to $1, and that's white women. That's not women of color. We get paid less. So that just shows that, obviously, we've tried to make changes and we've tried to put people at the table, right? With all of our intersectionalities, women of color, women who identify, or people that identify as LGBTQ+, but we are not there yet. And I don't think that we're always invited to the table.
Thank you. Mona?
Well, what a great question. I'm going to agree with both of my sisters over here for different reasons. Penelope is correct, I believe. You guys have always been at the table, whether it was black men or black women or Latinos or Latinas, whatever, but you could not be who you were. And if you did speak up, you would oftentimes not be invited again. And I think people really kind of, I hate to use this word, but kind of knew their place. And you're right as well. We have not been good at reaching out and saying, please come with us and bring who you are to the conversation. And I still think we're not very good at that. I can't do it in my family, so I'm trying to figure out why I could do it in the broader community. And that being said, I've had to be very intentional. I looked around and I said, why don't I have any black friends? I didn't have any black friends. I have known black people, worked with black people, but I didn't have any black friends. And I thought, well, maybe that's your fault. So I started going out and trying to get with people and develop friendships like I would with anybody that I wanted to be friends with. But I was intentional about seeking out people of color, seeking out women of color. And that is something that white people, I really believe, don't think about. And I'm going to throw my whole race under the bus because they don't think about it. They are so busy thinking about whatever is important to them, and they've had so much privilege their whole life that they don't even begin to understand what it might be like to be on the other side of that. And then lastly, I'm going to jump on what you said as being the black, colorful woman, bald with the gap teeth. Okay, I'm 6'2", white woman. I was always told to dumb myself down, be a little bit less aggressive, don't be so assertive, don't do this, don't do that. And I'm done with all that. I've kind of been done with that for a long time. And, I show up as who I am, and I am a tall, 6'2" white woman of privilege with money, and I'm going to use it. I'm going to stand up. I'm going to support you guys as much as I can, and I'm going to push back on these old white men, which frankly have worn me out also.
Well, thank you for using your privilege. Really appreciate that privilege. And I agree with everyone here as well. I feel like when we are invited to the table, as you said, it's difficult for us to be ourselves. And I feel pretty much every person in here can identify with microaggressions. Someone asking, when we do come to those spaces as ourselves, like I've mostly been able to do that. Before I was masculine presenting, I had dreads. Some folks know me. I moved from New York City to Florida in 2002. I grew out dreadlocks. Before it was as much as a fashion. So you're gonna deal with people asking about your hair, or I've had a lot of issues where I'm Jamaican. Big up all the Caribbean folks in the house. Big up, big up. Big up, blah, 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 blah. And sometimes people believe that immigrants had to come from struggle and poverty. Yeah. And that's not true, and that is true for many, like you talked about your dad, your family, but some of us did not come from that. So one of the microaggressions I have to deal with is people feeling like, wow, you had to have gone through such a tough life to be here. And I'm like, no, in Jamaica, we were doing pretty well, but there's things that brought us to America while we're here. So to understand that we're nuanced and we're not a monolith. Right, and to understand that we come from different experiences. Yeah.
Thank you for that. I connect with that because you and I talked about that.
Folks.
I find that to be the case as well. I do find myself in rooms where I am the only one. I say the chocolate drop in the milk, but I think that happens because I go through an interview process with and I have white friends, and I have lots of Latina friends, Latino friends, and friends that are AAPI as well. But I think what happens is that they go through, and they meaning, and I hate that brushstroke kind of thing, but you're going to have to excuse me for using it for this conversation. I think white folks, in order to make themselves comfortable, they put you through an interviewing process, right? So where are you from? So why do you sound so different? What does your mother do? What does your father do? What's the highest level of education you have? You speak so differently. Where have you traveled to? And this is somebody from the backwoods of someplace. It's like, really? But this is our experience, and I think that it's a little different after COVID.
Your ticket from the Florida Lottery isn't just a ticket, it's your ticket. With over 1 billion winners and counting across the state, it's your ticket to fun and excitement. It's also your ticket to support local retailers right in your community. And with billions of dollars contributed to Florida students and schools, your ticket is their ticket to a brighter future. So no matter how you play, your ticket goes much further than you think.
The law office of Austin, Pammies, Norris, Weeks, Powell is a full-service law firm practicing in the area of governmental law, including the representation of municipalities, civil litigation, personal injury, real estate, and corporate transactional matters. With over 100 years of collective experience, our attorneys are admitted to practice before state courts, federal courts, and the United States Supreme Court. We are conveniently located in downtown Fort Lauderdale and can be reached at 954-768-9770. Or for more information about the law firm of Austin, Pammies, Norris, Weeks, Powell, visit our website at apnwlaw.com. That's apnwlaw.com.
At the Women of Color Empowerment Institute, our mission is to enhance and expand leadership by women of color. We do this in a variety of different ways, including but not limited to providing mentorship opportunities for young professionals where we assist in helping to create paths to leadership. We empower women to develop capacities for social change. We produce programs that promote heritage awareness, and we provide training opportunities for business and government. Our institute holds seminars focused on professional success techniques, and we host many other events such as our popular Advocates for Change and Leaders Connect. The Women of Color Empowerment Institute publishes a magazine called Women Lead. Our signature event is the Women of Color Empowerment Conference, a yearly conference where hundreds of leaders gather from all across the United States and beyond. To learn more about membership and how you can support our programs or be a sponsor of the Women Lead TV, visit us at nationalwomenofcolor.com. Again, that's nationalwomenofcolor.com.
As we navigate these waters, we talked a lot about our personal experiences. Professionally, what do you think each of us can do to really help make these conversations not as difficult, the conversations that we're having, right, that are challenging? Professionally, what can we as individuals do to lessen that tension and stress associated with a conversation that can just be just that, a conversation?
Well, that's a great question. Thank you for asking it. I think it's very difficult to be authentic, period. When people don't feel safe and when people think there's a repercussion, and in the workplace it can be very difficult. Because let's face it, and this was talked about in the first panel, there are plenty of people we don't like, and there are plenty of people that don't like us. And people are always out actively, I believe, contorting themselves to try to be the thing that they think somebody else wants them to be. And boy, that reminds me when I was a child and my mom used to say, just tell the truth because it's so hard to remember lies and it's much easier just to remember the truth. And it was great advice. And I would say the same is true about being authentic, whether you're in the workplace or not. And people are frightened and afraid because they feel like they could lose their job and then they could lose their home and then their kids could be in jeopardy. And I know these are all real concerns. But we had a book club recently where we talked about this, and I said, and that was raised. People said, you can do that because you're a white, privileged, wealthy woman, so you can do whatever you want. Well, I wasn't always that, and I had to be fearless, and I look back, there was never a time in my life, even when I could barely rub two dimes together to make rent, there was never a time in my life that I wanted to be anybody other than who I was. And I'm reminded of the book, what other people think of me is none of my business, is really true. You cannot please all the people all the time. Contorting yourself into something that you think others want robs the world of your beauty and your uniqueness and your gifts. So my charge that day in the book club, and my charge to each of you out there, is be more Ida B like, right? There are people out there who have had, and I would say it's really been Black Americans who have shown some of the most extraordinary courage as I have read and learned more. So look at those people who put everything on the line before we had even voting rights, before we had, the alleged rights that we have today. Those people, those women, those men put everything on the line, and they went out to be who they were, to do the thing that they thought was right. And I want to see more people on the planet living into their convictions and their beliefs and doing it in an unafraid way, being willing to accept the consequences for the greater good.
Amen. Carla?
So I think that what resonates is that there's a lot of social constructs that are built. And so I'm going to ask you to challenge yourself. What are those social constructs that we've been thought to think should be the way we live? Why do we get married? Why do we tell people that they have to get married by a certain age? Why do we tell people that they should have children? And then not just one child, but 2 children, and maybe 3. Why is it that girls wear pink and boys wear blue? Why? Why have we allowed society, media, to brainwash us this way? Why does the man have to be the breadwinner and the one that makes the most, income in that house? And so I think, at the end of the day, it comes down to these social constructs that are embedded in our brains. And, whether you are part of the LGBTQ plus community or not, as a, straight Latina, woman, I also don't like wearing stockings and skirts. But I did it, and I've done it. And, even as a teacher, I remember I dressed a certain way as a teacher. I became a boss, and then I had people tell me, you have to dress a certain way, and you have to, and don't wear big earrings, and wear little pearls, and don't wear your hair like that. And, like all these things. And I don't know how many of you have seen the movie Barbie. Did you see the monologue where America Ferrera, when she does her monologue, well, I got to be thin but not too thin, and I got to wear my hair a certain way, all these things. She does this monologue. It's great. You should Google that. It's real. There's so many pressures and so many things that society tells us to do, to be, to act, to say, and we have to push past that. We have to be willing to not only be authentic, because, by the way, people know when you're fake. So when you're trying to talk differently, when you're trying to act differently, people know that. But when you're authentic, like when you showed up and you were your true self, and they were like, no, we got you because of who you were. We saw you. It speaks volumes. But we have to be willing to also look at people authentically and not have those social constructs guide us. Why do we have to do certain things a certain way? Question it, push back. And as people who are, probably a lot of you in here are parents, right? Think about the power that you have as a parent. What are you teaching your children? What are the social constructs that you're saying that they must have? How are you training them to treat other people? Because all of that starts in the house. And so if we want men to bring us and have, make sure that we're at the table, then we got to teach that to our babies, to our boys. And if we want women to be empowered and to raise their hands and to ask questions and to get in the game, then we got to empower our baby girls to do that too. And if they don't feel comfortable wearing skirts and they want to wear pants, go at it, baby. Yes. Right? Yes. And so we have the power of being parents, right? Whether we birthed them, adopted them, or care for the community, we are people who the community looks up to. So it's up to us to continue to make that change.
Oh, that was So good. That was, thank you. Penelope?
Okay, the question was it pretty much, how do you choose to present yourself?
Yes.
Okay. We are taught how we're expected to present ourselves. It's from the family. A lot of it's from the media. What are we watching? What are the expectations that are there? I am going to give an example of what I went through. I've been corporate world 30 years, 30 plus years. I remember sitting down with clients, male clients. They're like, you know, if you wanted to, you could dress more feminine. You don't have to be here in a black suit. And that got me thinking, you're right. And then I also got shamed out of wearing pantyhose by other women in the office because I kept wearing them when it was no longer fashionable because I liked how I looked better in them, you know. So we are definitely impacted by the people we're with and the comments that are made. And the question is, are we going to allow people to embrace who they are? And are we going to allow ourselves to embrace who we are? Or are we going to keep conforming ourselves to what we see?
Ladies, that was a riveting conversation.
Yes, it was. And I think it was a little bit uncomfortable for some people. What I mean, not uncomfortable for the panelists, and our audience was great, but those are the topics that they're talking about, those topics where people are uncomfortable when they engage in them. One of my jokes is that I was at a reception once. I walk in, people from work, and a man comes up to me and we're talking and he goes, "Is that your husband over there, the tall one?" And I'm thinking, okay, he's not that tall. The thing, he couldn't say the black one. And there just weren't many people in the room who were black, so it was pretty easy to guess who was my husband.
Maybe.
Potentially. You know, like potentially. But he was uncomfortable because he didn't want to guess black in case he was wrong. The word black was hard for him to say. So I looked at him and I said, "You mean the black man over there?" He goes, "Yes." And I said, "The black man over there?" I said, and then he laughed. I said, "Yes, that's my husband." But even the word is hard to say. Imagine having a full, engaging discussion where you're talking about your reaction to race or your reaction to racial issues when they arise. It's touchy stuff, and I'm glad we were able to put it out there.
Well, and thank you again to our panelists who graced us on the stage with their frank comments. We just have to get together more and talk.
That's
and
right.
Talk about these
That's
things.
right.
Well, we hope that you enjoyed this show today. And until the next time,
Be empowered.